Great, thank you. Whenever you're ready, Chair.
You're broadcasting, yeah. So good evening everybody, and welcome to our February Cabinet meeting. First of all, do we have any apologies? I don't believe we do. We don't. Secondly, declarations of interest. There are some declarations of interest on the budget. So we've got two council tenants, I believe. Yeah, Paul and Claire. And I have a council garage, which apparently I need to declare. So we're declaring a pecuniary interest under the budget item tonight. However, we have a dispensation from the monitoring officer. Thank you. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
There are no public questions or petitions. There are no questions to Cabinet members. So we move to the minutes of the previous meeting. So I propose them as a correct record. Is that seconded? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So now we move on to the Scrutiny Committee recommendations. They were circulated in a separate paper, and Councillor Giles and myself are going to respond to those, but Councillor Ackroyd, would you care to come forward and address the committee, because I think you're going to introduce this. And thank you very much for chairing that meeting so well.
Thank you very much. So I'll just say a few words, because I know you've all got the report in front of you. You probably don't need an awful lot from me. I think it's probably fair to say that the budget is one of the most important areas that ever comes to scrutiny, and it was a very well attended meeting, not only by members, but I think we had most of the Cabinet there and the Chief Exec. So thank you for that. And I just want to say at this point, thank you to the interim Chief Finance Officer, Neville, and to all the officers who were there for your very patient explanations, exposition, and answers to questions, because, you know, it was really good to hear what you've got to say and increases understanding. So thank you very much for that. I mean, clearly there was very wide-ranging and full discussion. There were many questions. We often went back to the subject of consultation. Consultation clearly is very important. You know, one of the recommendations that's come through is that consultation should be included in the equality, diversity and inclusion strategy. And it is important that people can understand, you know, consultations, can feel able to participate. But we were assured by the Chief Exec and the leader that in the new civic year it will come back. It will be maybe a scrutiny topic. It will certainly come back to Cabinet. So that's very reassuring. So you've got all the other recommendations in front of you, most of which actually do have to do with consultation. So I will be quiet and not say any more. Thank you.
No, thank you, Councillor Ackroyd, for introducing the item. As I say, Councillor Giles and I are going to respond between us, and Councillor Giles is going to begin.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you to the Scrutiny Committee for the recommendations brought here. Engagement and consultation are crucial ways of ensuring residents' voices are heard, and we welcome these suggestions to ensure residents feel more enabled to participate in decisions which impact them. I am pleased to say work began earlier this civic year with a group of officers across the organisation looking at how we can do this in a consistent way. These recommendations will be fed into that group. We agree that registering on Get Talking Norwich is identified as a barrier to participation in consultation. Most of our consultations today, including the corporate plan engagement, have not required registration. We are happy to commit to ensuring that there is no requirement to register as standard to to take part in a survey. However, there may be exceptions where the content of the consultation means we wouldn't be able to commit to this. For example, a play area survey, my favourite topic, which asks residents of members of the public to vote on designs from different suppliers could, theoretically, although you hope not in practice, be susceptible to manipulation for commercial benefit if anonymous voting was allowed. At times where it's identified that registration is required, we will seek to simplify the process by removing some questions. It is worth noting for clarity that some features on Get Talking Norwich, in particular the mapping function, require users to enter an email address and a screen name. These features are used for additional engagement rather than as the primary way residents can participate. We are happy to include demographic profiling questions into the main questions. We appreciate that many residents do not want to fill in this information, and it can act as a barrier to participation. We will therefore take the same approach as we did for the corporate plan consultation, to ask participants at the end of the survey if they are happy to complete these questions. If they say no, their consultation responses will be submitted without asking questions. We agree that all consultations should include a clear statement of intent, which explains how the results and data collected will be used. This statement should also make clear to residents the scope of their influence on the service or project. Feedback is an important part of consultation and helps residents understand how they influence change. We are happy to commit to uploading consultation feedback for each project onto the relevant main project page on Get Talking Norwich. Whilst this is a necessary part of the process, it is important to note that putting this feedback together is time-consuming for officers. As we are not asking people to register to participate, we cannot commit to notifying everyone who took part. However, Get Talking Norwich has a stay informed function, which we will include as standard on all consultations moving forward. We will be able to send newsletters to residents who submit their email address through this function, which sits apart from the survey to ensure responses are kept anonymous. The wording on the recommendation for equality, diversity and inclusion was unclear to us. If some clarity on that could be provided, that would be welcome. However, we assume it means to include questions within future consultations to ensure the response is representative of the demographic makeup of the city. Whilst we agree it is important to ensure that all voices are heard, there are practical challenges to this. It relies on people being willing to complete demographic questions. And if we seek to target communications to particular communities for all surveys, then we have a significant risk of consultation fatigue. There may be more effective ways of ensuring our engagement and consultation work is representative of the city's population, and in bringing in more deliberative processes to inform decision making. We will ask officers to look into the feasibility of this and whether there are other methods which would achieve the same aim. We are happy to try and avoid the use of leading questions in consultations. However, I would need to put into context of that when looking at the budget consultation, we are operating with limited resources each year. And within those limited resources, it needs to be reflected that all of us can't have everything that we would necessarily like from the budget, and there does need to be decisions made between choices as to what should be prioritised. We will seek to use statements with a Likert scaled agreement wherever appropriate. Whilst Get Talking Norwich is an excellent engagement platform, we are mindful that there are still many within Norwich who are digitally excluded, and many where low literacy rates can make written consultations inaccessible. Where resource allows, officers are advised of the need to do in-person consultations to reduce these barriers. The consultation for the corporate plan included significant in-person engagement with community activities across the city visited, as well as on-street engagement in different locations. Doing more in-person consultations will require more resource, and currently there is not the capacity within teams across the organisation to do this on a city-wide basis for every consultation. Thank you for the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. I'll respond to the final three recommendations. The first one, communicating how the council is spending its money to the public, and members being concerned that the budget is not understandable to a number of people, and to ensure that the message is communicated in a clear and jargon-free manner. Clearly we do present the overall budget in the form of a pie chart, which hopefully is easy for anybody to understand. But in terms of committing to clear and jargon-free language, I think we would always aim for that, and that's clearly not an issue for us. Providing a briefing to members of the council on the future shape of the Norwich project, in order that members understand the project. Very happy to agree to that. That can only be helpful, I'm sure, for more members to understand about the project, aims, objectives, how it works, and so forth. And finally, the section on NCSL in the budget papers. What was communicated to us was a section on Lion Homes is included in the capital strategy element of the budget. Consideration of both the council's companies should be included in this section of the budget. And we felt that was based on a misunderstanding of what the objective was of including Lion Homes. Lion Homes is a significant driver of capital investment by the council, and indeed it produces a revenue stream for the council, and that's why it appears in the budget in that way, in the capital section. Whereas for NCSL, it's more an investment in day-to-day services that doesn't produce a revenue stream, and that's the reason that it's not there. So both companies have a different relationship with us in that sense, and that's the reason for that. But other than that, it's clear we've accepted the vast majority of the recommendations. We're very pleased to have received them. It was a very interesting meeting, I found as well. The officers were very patient and informative in how they answered the questions, which we're grateful for. And I'll just ask whether any colleagues wish to make any comment? No? Okay. Lucy, do you wish to make a comment? Or ask a question, I should say.
Question, actually.
Question, yeah.
Thank you.
Please don't make a comment, ask a question. Yes, that was my mistake.
Sorry. Yeah, so thank you very much for that full response. It's really good to hear. Just noting that report came late on this morning, and I wanted to ask about the scrutiny task and finish group on retrofitting council homes that came to Cabinet on 13th of December for adoption, similarly following the same process, and that was proposed to be coming to this meeting, be put off for consideration to February, and we haven't seen the paper on that yet, although that would have probably been published last week if that followed through. Can you update me on progress on that one, please? Thank you.
I can, and we'll move on to that if you don't mind after we've adopted Council's response to the scrutiny recommendations on communication. So we need to have a vote on that, and then we'll answer the question on the other issue around retrofitting, if that makes sense. Just seems more logical to do it that way. Can I just see a show of hands, all those in favour of the recommendation and thank you very much, and the options that we have accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, in relation to the other question that you've raised, I'm going to ask Councillors Jones and Hampton to respond to those other scrutiny recommendations which were originally intended to come to this meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, and apologies that papers weren't recirculated ahead of this because, as you say, item on the agenda related to scrutiny recommendations only came out late. We hadn't realised what this had been rolled in, so we're prepared to respond to them if you're content with that now.
Yes, I would have expected to see the papers in advance, but
Yeah. We've been working on the basis of the last papers, which you're right, it would have been useful to have them recirculated, and that was our error for not realising that in time that they hadn't been, but I will go ahead if that's all right. So yeah, once again, I'd like to thank the members of the Task and Finish group for all their work on this, as well as the scrutiny committee as a whole, who obviously picked this as a topic and met again to consider the recommendations, and officers who offered a good deal of support for this work and also dedicated quite a lot of time to it. It's clear from talking to a range of people involved that this was a really constructive exercise, and it's clear there's some positive outcomes which we're largely happy to support. And I'm pleased that the committee decided to pick retrofit as an issue to take that more in-depth Task and Finish group approach on. It's a really important one, residential emissions being the top source of emissions in Norwich, accounting for over 30% of them. So continuing to retrofit homes and at an even greater pace will be essential if we're going to meet our citywide net zero target of 2045. And it's also completely necessary if we're going to live up to our original pledge of tackling the climate crisis in a socially and economically just manner as well. In the current cost of living and energy crisis, bills having doubled over the past 2 years, it is important that we never lose sight of those social and economic benefits of these works. And our previously published Sustainable Warmth Strategy really importantly outlines how our approach to retrofit must reduce energy costs and never exacerbate fuel poverty or other issues that residents might be facing. This piece of scrutiny work completely understandably deals primarily with our social housing stock, though both to meet emissions targets and to bring benefits to as many residents as possible in the city. Do want to just note the importance of enabling wider retrofit in private and other households as well, which is also important in the context of installing confidence in the retrofit economy, supply chain, our skills base, and because we have a number of recommendations here that do apply both to our stock and that wider picture. Our forthcoming citywide climate action strategy is going to look at how this council can lead and coordinate work towards citywide net zero, and is going to contain actions around, for example, setting up a retrofit task force, a digital retrofit hub, and supporting the development of a retrofit training academy. And I feel it's important to reiterate how Norwich has been improving the energy efficiency of its stock over time as a business as usual thing, and by successfully applying for funding opportunities, its own stock, and to enable measures for private homes. And we are aware of the need to ramp these works up to meet the increasing social and environmental challenges. So it's already firmly a priority for this council, with lots of work ongoing or in development. The environmental strategy team have delivered several retrofit schemes funded by central government over the past few years, including utilising social housing decarbonisation fund, wave 1 funding to install external wall insulation on 41 council homes, and also sustainable warmth competition funding to install 289 different measures on low-income owner-occupied properties. And we've recently submitted another bid totalling about £5 million to the next wave of social housing decarbonisation funding, which we'll be expecting to hear back on towards the end of this month or start next. Councillor Jones may well have touched on this more, but the December 22 HRO business plan sets out a commitment to make sure all our council homes reach EPC grade C as soon as possible and by 2030 at the latest, and then net zero by 2050, which is ambitious but necessary, and work has proceeded to inform the development of a comprehensive retrofit strategy for our stock, including property services, carrying out our stock condition surveys across all our properties, work with specialist consultants to undertake a study of our stock to generate information towards options analyses and feasibility studies, and a firmographic study of homes to understand the durability of those energy efficiency measures that have already been put in place. And there are other bits of work that are relevant or upcoming, which I'll touch on as we go through the recommendations or relevant ones, which already link in quite well. So I'll go through those which have a more sort of substantial overlap with environmental strategy work and work in my portfolio, and I'm sure Councillor Jones will then be able to pick up others that are implications, and mostly for the housing team and the HRA. So on that, well, I should note this might be a bit challenging because we've not got those papers in front of me. I will try to remember what number recommendation corresponds to what, but it's just going to be a bit of a memory test. I'll do my best, but on the first recommendation regarding the corporate plan, yes, this is already set to feature prominently in that, and as part of the extensive engagement work that took place to inform it, there was consultation with members of the Norwich Climate Commission and this council's Climate Environmental Emergency Executive Panel. As ever, the corporate plan underpins the budget, and I don't want to preempt the discussions we might have later on too much, but a growth bid has been put forward for climate change, which is intended to strengthen capacity and have an enabling effect in this area. More broadly on funding, and I think this is a point that cuts across a lot of the recommendations here. I am keen we consider all of these against the financial climate we've been put in after 14 years of Conservative government austerity and cuts to councils. There's lots here that do have considerable resource implications, whether that's in terms of existing staff time or really new capacity and growth, or just the cost of delivering what's being asked. So plenty that agree kind of in principle and spirit, but have to recognise there's going to be an element of prioritisation and keeping in mind that typically we need to lever external sources of funding, or ideally see a change in government and an overhaul of how this is funded, full stop. But in the meantime, it will be a case of planning and prioritising, which is something we're already working hard to do. There's the next point on developing a state of readiness for future funding, just something we'll always be looking to do anyway, and as I've already touched on, quite a lot of work's been going on to see where our stock's at and develop that roadmap of where we're going forward and where that funding slots in, and to build capacity as well, all of which kind of goes into the mix of what looks like, what being prepared looks like. Then skipping down to a point on ongoing training and advice, including site visits for all councillors and staff in relation to retrofitting. Well, site visits for all staff, for starters, clearly isn't workable. The training and opportunities that are offered need to be kind of proportionate and appropriate to the jobs and roles people have, but I get where this recommendation is coming from and would support staff and councillors receiving relevant advice and training to their roles, and for us as councillors this is likely to evolve more around how we can signpost residents to access support and tie them in with other projects and types of support that already exist to offer this. There's a resolution that comes down on a retrofit communications and engagement plan, which, yes, we're happy to pick up as part of the development of the citywide action strategy, as comms and engagement is already a prominent theme, and there's already acknowledgement that that needs to be consolidated. Regarding playing a leading role with our own estate, this is something, again, that we're keen to keep doing. The citywide action plan will reflect how we want to show effective leadership in that sense by using our estate as a living lab. Here at City Hall, the installation of 155 solar panels and our air source heat pump has helped to lead the way and demonstrate what can be achieved in the face of the challenges of kind of historical buildings such as this bring. And this point specifically references community centres. Retrofit of community centres is something we'd be keen to see happen, but as leased buildings falling in our scope-free emissions, they fall in a slightly other place, and it can be harder to access funding specifically for this purpose. Further on, suggest using a municipal bond scheme towards this, so I'll pick that up in a second. And more widely on retrofitting community assets. There's some positive news to be announced soon, hopefully, about a project that fits into this category. So for now, watch this space. Municipal bonds or municipal loans is the term we're moving towards using now. This is still something we're pursuing, and we're in live conversation with Abundance and other providers with a view to setting up such a scheme. Again, more details to come. On working with private sector investors to utilise potential external funding opportunities, i.e. in large-scale heat networks. This is something, again, that is already happening, so no issues accepting this. Officers have already been meeting with investors of big city-scale heating networks, more meetings to come this month. There's a recommendation regarding the county deal. This passed the county before this meeting and before our previous cabinet meeting, I understand, so the opportunity to negotiate on more resource has gone if it was ever really there. Councillor Stonnard might know a bit more on that. I know when cabinet members and city officers met with county representatives, the fact that there's no explicit funding for net zero involved in there was expressed to them. And this recommendation also references potential benefits such a deal might bring in partnership working, which we'd always be keen to explore, and of course we already work in partnership at the county level on this sort of work, mostly through the Norfolk Climate Change Partnership and Norfolk Warm Homes Partnership. On ensuring any contract for retrofit delivers social value, this is already a requirement under the Social Value Act. And this does largely fall under Councillor Kendrick's portfolio, so he may or may not want to comment further, but it's something that we agree with in principle, and it's a useful tool for us to explore further. With regards to assessing skills provision and capacity in the local economy, it's work that we know has to happen. It is going to be a barrier if that doesn't catch up, and we will always support work in that area, but Norfolk County Council are currently undertaking a piece of work to understand the county's retrofit workforce and skill set, and it's appropriate that they lead this as the education authority and one covering a sensible geography for this. They've commissioned consultants to carry out this work and are working, among others, with the Retrofit Academy CRC to get training provision within Norfolk. And I think similar applies to the next point here about ensuring equal opportunities and skills, which needs to go hand in hand as well. We need to have those opportunities for in the first place, I suppose, and that approach needs to start as soon as people are entering into the sector and getting trained. And there's a final point regarding planning, which Matthew might want to pick up ultimately, but yes, again, it's a tool we know we need to be looking at, and a recent example of how this is happened in practice would include the East Norwich Energy Supplementary Planning document that's been drafted and sets out policies, principles and guidance for delivering sustainable energy in this strategic development area. So to wrap up, the majority of the points I talked on, at least, we're comfortable with. They reflect work that's already happening and we know needs to happen, so we can align them quite nicely. As I said earlier, it has to be a running caveat about that financial backdrop and need to prioritise. But otherwise, I'll hand over to Councillor Jones to pick up other recommendations to do with housing, where I'm aware there are more competing priorities and pressures, but I hope that's given you an indication of where we're at with these at the moment.
Thank you. I'll keep it very short because Councillor Hunter's gone into most of the detail, but to say we are fully committed to a retrofit programme within our housing stock, and it's crucial that we do that with a really clear evidence base. We're awaiting the stock condition survey results, and that's going to be our guide for where we go forward in terms of all our properties. And I think I caveat everything I say with awaiting that information, because actually it's crucial that we make the best decisions for our residents that's evidence-based, and we do have competing priorities. So that stock condition survey will give us font of information that we can then work from. And we then look at actually what work needs to be done and what different types of properties we have. And that will determine the type of retrofit that would be appropriate, or if it's actually financially worth doing in that on those types of properties, and what other options we need to explore. We then need to also be considering what our new build programme is along that. So we have a number of competing financial asks of us, and for me to say I'm definitely going to putting X amount of money in one place at the moment without that information, I don't think would be responsible. But what I can say is that retrofitting is going to be crucial, because actually it's not only is it about carbon emissions, but it's also about having healthy homes that people can afford to heat and live in. So the massive social benefit there as well is crucial. So all of that needs to be included. And this is going to be a big bit of work. I say big, I'm massively understating, I think, the scale of the work that is going to be needed once we've got that stock condition survey, to really understand what is the future, to make sure we have the best, healthiest, most sustainable homes. So I can caveat say I agree with the majority of what's in here. How we do that and the timescales right now, I can't give you any 100% certainty around, because I'm waiting that information. But I think it's going to be an exciting piece of work that I really look forward to. So hence why I say I could not fully say that I would commit to accelerating retrofitting, because I don't know quite how much we're going to need to spend to respond to the stock condition survey. But at the same time, we can give our commitment. Coming back to, there was mention around community centres, some of those sit within the HRA. I'm keen that we explore other sources of funding when we're looking at things like community centres, because actually HRA funding, I would prioritise that spent on retrofit of homes first and foremost before we look at any other buildings. I know it's maybe a small thing, but to me, retrofitting houses where it has that really immediate impact's got to be the first step. But given there are other alternative ideas around funding, I fully support those being explored. In terms of having the right expertise, that will obviously be something we always need to have, the right skill mix of people to respond to what we're doing. So again, this is an ongoing discussion that will need to happen once we're able to really formulate where we go forward with our stock. I'm sorry that I am caveating my response with so many what ifs, but I suppose I don't want to say yes 100% down a particular route, but say fully supportive of the principle of what's here. But how we do it, I would look forward to being able to discuss with you further once we've got that more information, and as we go on this journey, because I think it is going to be a journey of where our stock goes as a housing stock and how we make sure people have the best homes. It's not going to be a quick fix. As we've said, the journey to PCC and carbon neutral is a long one already. So I think we'll have many more discussions, and I look forward to those. In terms of bringing on board things like using Lime Homes to offer retrofit, whilst I would be adverse to that, I would also just caveat that with procurement, and that we've always got to get the best value. And as someone who, whilst they may be, I was someone who will closely guard the HRA pot of money. If we're going to use a service, I want to make sure it's always the one that's going to give best value. And in terms of the asking to examine NCSL opportunities, ambitions around this, I suppose that may be something to discuss in the future. At the moment, I'd like to focus on business as usual and the immediate role that NCSL has in terms of working with the HRA. I think that's pretty much, so yeah, in principle, I think fantastic, and I think we will be taking a lot of it on board. There is just a question of timescale for me with some of them that I can't sort of commit to immediately at the moment. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for that. Given that we didn't have the paper, I think you did an exceptionally good job responding. Do any other colleagues, cabinet colleagues, have any questions or comments they wish to make on this?
I just have a question.
Please do, go ahead.
Officer.
Please do.
For those of us that are trustees for community centres, do we need to abstain on that particular recommendation?
If there's any financial implication in relation to that, then you would. Do you know if there's any financial implication at this stage?
there's no pecuniary benefit to us, but there would be to the charities.
Well, no, in that case you don't.
Very good, thank you for that.
Don't need to abstain, we do need to abstain. I just
Don't need to abstain, I think.
That's your decision.
Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I thought I'd just clarify.
It's your decision whether you abstain, but you don't. You're not required to.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Adam. That's helpful. Lucy, do you have a question?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the full response. Obviously, it came from a scrutiny task and finish group that was cross-party, that I chaired, that went on for, we had 6 meetings, I think. Caroline was involved, Councillor Ackroyd, and it was we did a lot of work. We had really good support from officers, a range of officers. We went out with this council, so we took best practice nationally. And it's a really solid report, which I think you've reflected in your answers, and it was cross-party as well. So it was built and engineered to be something that this council could take on without, without too much trouble. It wasn't asking for anything too different. And I'm really glad to see that you've taken it on in that spirit. I would have liked to know that was coming today, so I could be prepared. I would have liked to have seen the papers. I'm not quite sure why they weren't circulated, but I'll look at them now with interest, and I imagine they will be now. That would be really good. But thank you very, very much, and look forward to taking this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Galvin. There is a recommendation that we adopt the response to the scrutiny recommendations on retrofit, which has been outlined by Councillor Jones and Councillor Hampton. So can I see all those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Good. Thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Ackroyd, for joining us.
Thank you.
You may go home now if you wish, or you may stay and enjoy the delights of the rest of the meeting. Something I should have said, which I didn't say, I'm going to be told off, by Alex. So the final item on the disposal of assets, which is on the agenda, has been withdrawn, just so that we're aware of that. Apologies, I should have announced that before that item. And now we move on to item 7, which is the Council Tax Deduction Scheme for 2024-2025. Councillor Giles is going to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mike. Since the coalition government took the decision to abolish council tax benefit in 2013 for those of working age, a number of local authorities have introduced minimum council tax payments for their most vulnerable residents. I'm proud that this Labour-led administration has consistently retained our 100% council tax reduction scheme. Over 100 years after the first Labour government, after 14 years of Conservative governments, the differences in life chances between rich and poor are almost as great as they were 100 years ago. Infant mortality rates are 4.6 per 1,000 in the families of manual workers, compared to 2.9 in the families per 1,000 in the families of professionals. The average disposable income of the highest paid 20% of the population is almost 6 times greater than the average income of the lowest paid. Residents looking for work who are unwell and or have a disability need support, not additional stress. We know that problem debt can increase the likelihood of financial exclusion, family breakdown, and poor physical and mental health, putting further strain on public services later down the line. This authority will not put administration and staff costs into chasing after small sums of money they simply do not have the means to pay. This paper sets out how this Labour administration is raising the CTR applicable amount for CTRS claimants in receipt of legacy benefits in accordance with CPI, ensuring that claimants do not lose out in real terms. We will continue to retain our local discounts for care leavers, single occupants taking in a refugee, and second home discounts for those required to flee their main home due to domestic violence. For legacy benefit claimants, we will continue to use our discretion to disregard housing costs, the two-child benefit cap, and the OSA support group component for the purpose of calculating income. Bevan said the religion of socialism is the language of priorities. Whereas in Norwich we offer 100% council tax reduction for the poorest, in Great Yarmouth, a Conservative-led administration, you can only get up to 75% off your council tax bill. This illustrates how this Labour-led authority prioritises supporting the most vulnerable. That is the difference Labour in power makes. I was glad to have unanimous support from the cross-party CTRS working group for the proposed scheme today. The Conservative-led Norfolk County Council, when consulted, proposed reducing the scheme to a 75% one, reducing our £16,000 maximum capital level, possibly to a level of £6,000, as some other Norfolk district authorities do, and limiting CTRS eligibility to those in properties no higher than Band D. This council has, after the required consideration, rejected these proposed amendments by the County Council. The scheme as proposed will cost Norwich City Council an estimated £1.24 million in 2024-25, a £60,000 increase on 2023-24. Budget estimations are difficult this year because of the planned migration from HB-only claimants to UC from June this year. However, it is, as I'm sure Councillor Kendrick will highlight, only possible to retain this 100% scheme because of the prudent financial management of this Labour-led City Council. The detailed recommendations are as set out in Recommendation 2 of the paper. I am proud to propose the scheme and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Well said, Adam. I think the 100% scheme, which we've put in place and maintained for over 10 years now, is something I'm immensely proud of, and we can all be immensely proud of. So, are there any comments or questions from colleagues on this? No? I think there might have been a comment you would have made, Paul, but Adam's made it for you.
Sorry.
Something about sound financial management, sound and prudence. Yes. Beth.
Just really to say how relieved I am that we're able to still, however difficult it is, continue to offer this. I think given the really significant impact it can make for people, it's difficult times for local authorities, but continuing to do this does have an impact, and I think the impact is felt by those who really do need the help.
100%, absolutely. Thank you, Dave. Lucy, do you have a question or comment? Well, do you have a question?
I have a question, yes, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. So other councils I've heard as well are moving towards this 100% scheme. They're more and more joining that approach because we've maintained it since its introduction, but in fact it's really a good way to help out in a cost of living crisis. It gets money to people that need it. I wanted to ask what additional support is available to residents who are identified as in need by this scheme. What additional support is signposted? What signposting work do we do? It's a good way of identifying the people that need it most.
Thank you. We subscribe to the Norfolk Community Advice Network and provide grant funding to them each year. We also grant fund a financial inclusion consortium of agencies in the city who provide advice and support for many of our most vulnerable residents. That includes Citizens Advice, Norfolk Community Law Service, Shelter, MAP. I could go on, Bridge Plus, others. And when residents do present to us as vulnerable, we're then able to use our NCAN membership, to use the NCAN system to make referrals to those financial inclusion consortium partners who may be able to assist them with claiming for DWP benefits, which we don't administer ourselves.
Thank you for that, Adam.
Mike, I did just forget to thank our benefits department
Oh,
for
absolutely.
their hard work. So I will make that point now.
Absolutely, point well made. And with that then, we have the recommendation in your papers. Can I see all those in favour, please? Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you. We're now moving on to item 8, which is the Council's provisional 2024-25 budget and medium-term financial strategy. This is very much the Paul Kendrick show. There's quite a few papers here to go through, but I'm sure Paul will take us through them in his usual concise yet accurate manner.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, after 14 years of Tory austerity, we have seen dire effects on the local government sector. We see a growing number of councils having to issue a Section 114 notice, which reflects the dire financial situation. But not only this, we see a growing number of other councils saying that they too are in severe financial difficulties. That includes 3 councils that I had once had the honour of being a member of: Hastings Borough Council, East Sussex County Council and Kent County Council.
A long time ago.
A long time ago, but I remember, especially in terms of Kent County Council, how strong and resilient its financial position was. But it does go to show kind of the damage the last 14 years of the Conservative government has achieved. However, in these challenging circumstances, I'm pleased to propose a balanced budget for the year 24-25 without the use of reserves. And this is due without also the level of cuts that sadly have become the norm in so many other councils. And this has been as a result of the sound financial management of this Labour administration. This suite of reports set out the position across both the councils' general fund and housing revenue accounts, covering both revenue and capital expenditure plans. It follows a period of consultation on the key elements of the budget, but we also consulted separately on the corporate budget. Scrutiny Committee has asked us to look at the ways to improve that consultation on our budget, where responses were indeed a little lower than we normally expected. We can also take comfort from the additional and extensive engagement on the corporate plan to inform our priorities for the future, which is engaged with over 900 individuals and organisations. The budget is, after all, the financial expression of those plans. It is unsurprising that some stakeholders felt sufficiently engaged, but that's a smaller number felt necessary to respond separately to the budget. And we should never forget, of course, that the largest consultation exercise takes place in the May local elections, where Labour councillors have been repeatedly re-elected. Whilst the medium-term financial strategy highlights that there are some savings being made across the remainder of the mid-term financial strategy, this isn't necessarily surprising given the uncertainty about local government funding, continuing growing pressures on local authorities for services, inflationary factors impacting the funding of services, and the inland general election. We do not know what a future government may seek to achieve, but we can be confident this City Council has a good record of financial management and prudent decision making, which is reflected in the balanced budget without the need to draw upon our reserves. A healthy balance sheet and strong returns from prudent use of cash balances. Now, unfortunately, some other councils are in such a poor financial situation that they are having to spend their reserves, which of course you can only spend once, to cover their own revenue account on their expenditure, which, as you can imagine, can only be done for a limited period of time. Yet this seems to be the government Mr. Gove's idea that we don't have the local government sector should save itself. Well, that's really, if that's his way of financial management, he couldn't run the copy store. The latest budget management reports elsewhere on the agenda indicate that there will also be no overspending in this current financial year, whilst delivering 93% of the savings target agreed this financial year, which I think you would all agree is an exceptional achievement, particularly in the context of many authorities who are struggling to balance their budget or having to issue Section 144 notices. The local government financial settlement has now been finalised, and this confirms the Council will receive an extra £193,000 as a consequence of the government being forced to heed the evidence provided by lobbying groups, including District Council's network. We are proposing a 2.99% increase in our share of council tax, which is essential to maintain services both now and into the future. Similarly, with the extensive demands of maintaining our substantial housing stock and providing more homes into the future, means that we also need to increase our housing rents and service charges in line with the rent setting standard. The 30-year HRA business plan highlights the need for this investment that the Council is committed to delivering. Whilst the additional resources are welcome and overall the settlement delivered an increase in cost spending power of 5.7% compared to this year's financial settlement, there continues to be a challenging financial outlook for local government in the medium term. Our proven and effective financial management and control has provided a solid foundation from which we can build. However, we must not be complacent, and we will need to continue to maintain these high standards in order to balance the medium-term financial strategy. The development of the new corporate plan demonstrates how Norwich City Council has been getting ahead of the curve, since it already reflects the objectives set out in the new requirement for the local productivity plans, which need to be approved and published by July 2024 in order for local authorities to receive additional funding guarantees. Local government continues to await the revised funding regime, whether for council tax or business rates, to bring our funding arrangements into the 21st century. It is likely that there will be further changes during the course of the current medium-term financial strategy, not least as a consequence of the general election that will take place within the next 12 months. We also hope to reflect multi-year financial settlements, support longer-term financial planning, and fair funding for all authorities having to rely upon the sticking plaster of a funding guarantee which had been necessary while adequate funding mechanisms have been absent. Despite the challenges faced, the Council has been able to propose a budget that requires no additional savings-related proposals. It does not require the use of one-off reserves to fund our ongoing expenditure, while establishing a strong foundation to secure future service development and improvement linked to our corporate plan. I am sure that in all the circumstances we can agree that this budget delivers for everyone in the city and should be recommended for approval by the full council. Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Kendrick, thank you very much for that very comprehensive introduction. Nev, Mr. Merton, would you care to add anything to that?
No, that's all good. I think we've got all the salient facts in front of us.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Questions or comments or amendments from my colleagues on the left here?
Yes, I've got 3 amendments to the capital programme. Thank you. I welcome the budget introduced by Councillor Kendrick and the positive investment it brings to the city in challenging circumstances. We have heard questions raised about whether we listen to budget consultation. 20% of budget consultation respondents highlighted parks and open spaces as the service they valued most. The capital programme includes investment in park signage across the city. These aren't amendments at this stage. An upgrade to Castle Gardens funded by the GNGB and Section 106 contributions, and the completion of the Urban Cemetery railings replacement programme. Accessible and affordable sport has played a critical role in the creation and development of a number of Norwich's award-winning parks. Sport and physical activity is the best medicine any doctor can prescribe for better health and well-being outcomes. In this context, I am delighted to announce that as well as the investment already proposed, we are able to bring forward further proposals to insert into the capital programme for additional investment in our parks, funded from Section 106 developer contributions and allocated IIF funding in the approved Greater Norwich Growth Board Infrastructure Investment Plan, which we approved in January. I would therefore like to table an additional recommendation to be added to the capital programme budget report for consideration by full council at the budget setting meeting on the 21st of February that, firstly, inserting funding for the play area improvement programme of £1.1 million over the period 2024-25 to 2026-27. This is funded by Section 106 developer contributions. This will be broken down as 500,000 in 2024-25, 300,000 in 2025-26, and 300,000 in 2026-27. This investment will be based on a recent thorough survey of play area equipment condition. Alongside this work, there is a broader order of play areas for quality and value in the process of being conducted across the city that will align with the emerging parks and open spaces regeneration strategy, which will go to scrutiny committee in March. Secondly, insert funding of £333,000 secured from the GNGB in 2024-25 for the upgrade to the changing rooms in the rotunda of our award-winning Eaton Park to ensure they remain FA compliant. The scheme will see solar panels and a heat pump installed. The full completion of the project will be subject to planning permission being successfully sought and a successful bid for Football Foundation match funding of £187,000. The scheme is in the Football Foundation's Norwich Football Facilities Programme. We are hopeful of success with this match funding bid. Thirdly, to insert funding of £850,000 secured from the GNGB for the Luff project to regenerate Slowbottom Park. This is in addition to the £7.584 million funding in government Luff funding already in the proposed capital programme in our papers. The project is set to deliver a linked set of community facilities in Slowbottom Park, including new and significantly improved sports and play areas. This will include a new 3G football pitch and changing facilities, wider recreational facilities and infrastructure improvements. The scheme will represent substantial investment in the Mile Cross area. Again, after securing successful planning permission, hopefully, there will be a match funding bid to the Football Foundation in relation to the football-related elements of the scheme. Again, this scheme is also in the Football Foundation's Norwich Football Facilities Programme, and we are hopeful of success with this bid. So, 3 amendments to the capital programme there. The City Council, I'm pleased to say, Section 151 officer has confirmed that this additional funding and associated expenditure can be incorporated into the budget proposals as an additional recommendation to Budget Council to consider when approving the budget. I have got the approval of Paul and the CEO for this as well, so I'm just free. Thank you.
You've not taken any chances there, have you, Adam? Do I need a seconder for this?
Yeah, you do.
Okay, for this. Does anyone want to speak first?
I'm happy to second it.
Yeah, okay. Anyone wish to speak? I'll ask Lucy if she has any questions.
Just where that funding's come from, is the GNGB, and they're all from GNGB. And was it suddenly made available now, or has it been sat around for a while?
Firstly, the play area improvement programme is from Section 106 funding. The football changing rooms pavilion project in Eaton Park and associated works is GNGB with a plan to make a match funding bid to the Football Foundation after successful planning permission. The Slowbottom Park project is, the papers already incorporates proposed insertion of the government's LUF funding, the 7.584 million. This is the 850,000 from the GNGB they're putting towards the scheme. And again, following successful planning permission, there will be a bid to the Football Foundation for some match funding for that project as well.
I just wondered why it's an amendment now, why it hasn't been factored in before.
Well, I mean, in relation to the GNGB funding, we only approved the the GNGB 5-year infrastructure investment plan in January at January Cabinet. And there wasn't time between January Cabinet and budget scrutiny to incorporate it into the papers. However, I have spoken about this in great detail with Neville and the service area, and they've confirmed that this funding is secured for this purpose, and therefore it's acceptable to insert into the capital programme at this stage rather than wait to the middle of the year.
Okay, thank you. Beth, you would like to say something?
I'd just like to thank Adam for bringing this as a ward councillor bordering Eaton Park. Any investment in any of our parks is so welcome because they really are something that really is unique to Norwich, the scale of our parks and the beauty of them. And I think anything that brings a wider range of people, so things like sports facilities to those, is essential. But also we know quite how much they matter to our residents, and we saw that in the budget consultation as well. So yes, just thank you for bringing this forward. And Eaton Park is much used, that's what I know best. And I think they'll be very welcomed by the residents.
Okay, so I'm going to propose for a seconder, so I think we need to vote on these budget amendments. I'm looking at the monitoring officer.
Yes,
we do. Okay, all those in favour?
Lovely.
That's passed unanimously. So now we return to the overall recommendations, which are contained on page 31. Now we're noting all of the reports, and we're being asked to recommend to Council to approve those items on page 32 and 33. Is that clear? Brilliant. Okay, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'm aware that Councillor Packer needs to leave, so I'll allow him to take his leave from us. And we now move on to the corporate performance report for quarter 3, 2023-24, which I'm going to introduce. So I'm really pleased to be able to bring forward this report that sets out progress for year 2 of the corporate plan 2022-2026 and covers the period 1st of October to 31st of December 2023, which is known as quarter 3. There are 23 quarterly and no annual KPIs reported for this period. I'm particularly pleased to be able to announce that the report shows, despite a backdrop of some of the highest demands for services, along with resource challenges and sustained budget cuts, we've achieved notable improvements in performance. We've worked hard as a Cabinet with our officers to concentrate our attention on the small number of areas where we know performance has faced challenges, and I think that this report highlights the success of this. We now have 16 KPIs showing as green, 1 as amber, and I'd like to thank everyone for their hard work in helping us to achieve this. We have 3 remaining KPIs showing as red, but we have mobilised action into these areas to drive performance improvements. For example, we have a task and finish team in place reviewing complaints and the processes that sit beneath them, which spans across the whole council, and already we are starting to see improvements which will flow through to the next quarter's reporting and thereafter, which is great to hear. We knew that we would see a dip in digital channel shift this quarter due to the County Council parking back office services which were previously provided by the City Council moving to another provider. This service was predominantly carried out online, with most residents requesting parking permits online. However, we've already anticipated challenges with channel shift and the changing needs of our customers and are well underway with the development of the new customer and digital strategy. Once it is developed, it will have an associated action plan developed that will address some of these challenges and help us to really focus and push forwards in line with our customers' needs. I'd also like to draw to your attention some of the other notable successes within this report this quarter. I'm pleased that the percentage of council housing rent collected has improved significantly, moving from red to green this year, with 99.1% collected against 98.25% in the same period last year. This pattern is consistently tracking above the previous year, and projections indicate collection performance of 99.3% at the year end, which is absolutely excellent. We've continued with improvements in relation to the success rate of phone calls. and a significant reduction in phone wait times, which has had a positive impact on customer satisfaction with the customer contact service, which has, I'll say that again, which has had a positive impact on customer satisfaction with the customer contact service, which has moved from red to green this year, and now reporting as above target. This reflects the efforts made by the customer contact team to redesign processes and the service to reduce the average wait time and improve satisfaction. The total number of private sector insulation measures completed indicator has moved from red, with 34 measures in Q4 of last year, to consistently green this year, with a total of 83 measures being installed in Q3. 49 of these were via the central government funded Sustainable Warmth competition, which comprises a mixture of solar PV, external wall insulation, cavity wall insulation and hybrid heat pumps. The other 34 further measures are via the latest Solar Together auction, 30 of which are solar PV and the final 4 being battery storage on existing PV arrays. The sign-up period for the 2023 Solar Together auction has recently closed, but interest has been strong. These installations should come through mid to late 2024. It's also worth noting that many of the central government retrofit schemes no longer require the involvement of local authorities, such as the Great British Insulation Scheme, and thus there are likely hundreds more private sector installations occurring across the city that we are not aware of, but overall a great achievement. You will see that Appendix A provides additional information on notable achievements and challenges for the reporting period, including housing delivery and Lion Homes handing over the first 20 new family homes at Trinity Meadows, 3 School, to the Council at the end of 2023, with a further 56 homes expected from January through to June 2024. Community safety, securing several partial closure orders protecting vulnerable residents from cuckooing, a practice where people take over a person's home and use the property to facilitate exploitation, and antisocial behaviour associated with several individuals involved in the use and trade of illegal drugs. And finally, successfully securing Safer Streets funding from Round 5. The elections team successfully implemented the new online postal voting registration requirements to the deadline of 31st of October 2023, alongside processing several thousand amendments to the electoral register for its republication on the 1st of December 2023. And finally, revenues and benefits allocated discretionary housing payments through the 2023-24 policy and were able to support new applications until the end of the financial year. So all in all, I'm extremely pleased with the direction that performance is moving in, as reflected in this report, and I thank my Cabinet colleagues and officers for their ongoing work on this. We're all here to deliver great services to residents, and I know this matters a great deal to all of us. So once again, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from Cabinet colleagues? Beth and then Adam. Yeah, Beth and Adam.
I'd just like to highlight a couple of things within my service area. You mentioned the community safety and that element, and I think that's real credit to officers who've worked to turn around what was a really challenging service to one that's working so effectively, and I think there's real credit due to the Director of Housing for the work that was done on that. Mm-hmm. I'd also like to just sort of highlight the fact that demand has never been greater for homelessness services, but yeah, and we do have higher numbers than I'd want in temporary accommodation, but still within our KPIs. But also that whilst we have that high rate of presentation, we are still bucking the trend nationally in terms of rough sleeping rates. And I think that's something we can be really proud that we're doing. I don't see the picture getting much easier for us, but I think we continue to have that commitment. And also it highlights our positive work with other providers in the city. And as I've mentioned at Council, it's all about partnership working because addressing homelessness is such a complex issue. So I think I really wanted to just highlight that. And then the other thing, just to draw people's attention to, that we continue to work hard to ensure that we're keeping compliance around gas safety certificates, and whilst that dipped, it was 99.9%. We went to amber briefly, but that was one outstanding. And that's, you know, this is something that is a real turnaround, and really highlights the work that's been done on that. So yeah, just I think that from a risk point of view is something worth keeping an eye on.
Excellent, two excellent points there. Thank you, Beth. Adam.
Thank you. I just want to comment on the positive benefits performance. You'll see from the report at the top of page 211 the average number of days taken to process new housing benefit claims against a KPI of 19.5 days. For the third quarter, it was an average of 18 days. Year to date, that's 17.3 days, and in P9 in December, 17.2 days. This compares very favourably with Conservative-led Breckland, where the average number of days to process new claims is 26 days. Oh, sorry, poor old Breckland's getting a hard time tonight. I think you know. And Breckland have just over half the number of HB claimants that we do in Norwich, so I think that shows the positive performance.
Absolutely.
In relation to council tax reduction, which isn't the corporate KPI but service KPI, the year to date against a target of 35 days is 31.62 days, and for P9 30.22 days. So positive performance there against targets, and thank the Benefits Department for their hard work.
Excellent, yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Adam, for that. Are there any other questions or comments from colleagues? I'll go over to you. Lucy, do you have a question?
Thanks, Mike. Yes, I do. There's increasing freedom of information request. I think it's 19 on page 210. There's a 28% increase in the number of requests, which is quite significant. And that an increase in freedom of information requests is often associated with a lack of trust in an organisation. I just wanted to draw to your attention that the website has got a really strong commitment to proactively publish data on, there's an open data page you'll be aware of. So if you look at that page, a lot of it's out of date, like senior salaries haven't been updated since 2018, homelessness provision hasn't been updated since 2016, social housing asset values in 2018, parts and open spaces 2017, facility plan 2018, there's a list of them I can give you. Can you investigate what's happened there and commit to greater openness and proactive publication of information?
So I'd assumed that the reason for the increase was an industry amongst green councillors of asking us freedom of information requests. But as an aside, I'm not sure that the increase actually necessarily reflects a lack of trust on the part of the general public. What I would say is, if there are areas of the website which are out of date, then we need to update them. I don't sense there's a lack of trust in our transparency, however. So, in terms of the basic premise, I wouldn't necessarily agree. But of course, we want to be open and transparent, and of course, we'll keep our data up to date on the website. And if there are examples which you've given, which is very helpful, then of course we will do that. Okay, so there's a recommendation, which is that we note progress on the key performance indicators for the quarter. Can I feel those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. So we now move on to the risk register, and that is going to be Councillor Kendrick. Now there is a below the line element to this, so I think we will ask, after Councillor Kendrick has introduced this, whether there are any issues that people want to raise with the below the line element, and if there aren't, then we can take the whole report and not go to the exclusion of the public later on. So, Paul.
Thank you very much, Chair. This report sets out the corporate risk question, which sets out the application position as of the 31st of December 2023. Risk owners have updated their assessment of the current position against the previously determined target risk scores as they continue to deliver services in challenging circumstances. There has not been any significant change. The Council has considered the Council's risk profile since the second quarter report presented to the Cabinet in November. So I'd like to comment on the significant improvement that has been achieved in relation to our health and safety responsibilities. Risks associated with health and safety compliance in council homes and buildings have been removed from the corporate risk register, but will be managed at a higher level. This follows the normal notification from the social housing regulator. They were satisfied with the progress made in addressing the issues which led to the council's self-referring itself of breaches, and this represents a key achievement in our journey to bring about rapid improvement to this area. The Cabinet recommends to note the identified risks and the direction of travel set out in this report. Thank you.
Excellent. Brief, concise, to the point. Thank you, Paul. So, are there any questions from colleagues on the risk register? I know we've all looked at it and it's a really important document. Are there any questions? Do you have a question, please, Lucy?
Anyone any questions on the below the line?
Do that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Lucy?
I do have a question. Did you say you want to go below the line on it, or?
I was going to do that separately. So, do you have? Can I just check? Do you have a question on the below the line element of the report?
I don't think it's below one. It's in the bit above. So.
Is it on green paper?
No.
Oh, in that case, it's fine. In that case,
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah. So. It says significantly the risk associated with health and safety compliance in council homes has been removed from the corporate risk register, and it can be managed at directorate level, following the formal notification from the social housing regulator that they're satisfied with addressing the issues which led to the council self-referring for its breaches. Can you confirm that the council's not planning or involved in any legal proceedings of any kind regarding the health and safety breaches?
Who's the best person to answer that? So the buck stops at Lou.
Thank you, Chair.
I'm enjoying that a bit much.
I'd like to take that away and come back to you just to provide that information. I don't have that to hand.
I think that's wise. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll come back to you separately on that. And will you contact Lucy directly? And
Yes,
perhaps
we'll
copy
do.
us in and let
Yes,
us know.
right directly to Councillor Galvin.
Thank you. Thank you. So in that case, we're invited to note the risk register for quarter 3, 2023-24. Can I see all those in favour?
Is this for the below the line element as well?
Thank you, Matthew. Absolutely right. Rewind. So there were no questions on the below the line element. So in that case, if everyone is content, we'll take the below the line element as well.
Is everyone confirming there are no questions?
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Thank you for that, Matthew. Good spot. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Having explained so carefully how we were going to handle it. Never mind. So let's move on then to item 11, which is budget monitoring report for quarter 3. So this is a routine report. It's Councillor Kendrick again.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm pleased to present the budget monitoring position based on the information provided by budget holders for the third quarter of this financial year. Overall, the Council continues to maintain a strong financial position, with general fund overall indicating an underspend of 3.5 million. The majority of savings proposals agreed for this financial year remain on track, including those agreed for the increased levels of income from Treasury management activities, which continues to perform strongly both in terms of financial returns but also in relation to maintain a low risk profile. The Housing Review account, an overspend of £3 million has been projected, which remains largely attributable to the impact of continuing high rates of inflation on expenditure necessary to maintain our housing stock, combined with the additional level of work required to reinstate void dwellings to a legible standard. Our current capital programme is currently indicating an underspend of £900,000 for the general fund and £6 million for the housing revenue account, although much of the underspent budget will be requested to be carried forward if work continues into the next financial year. Overall, I remain pleased with the position that we find ourselves in, which demonstrates that our processes are sound and the proposals we agree in setting the budget are achievable, and also recommendations that we note the Council's strong financial position. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kendrick. Are there any comments or questions, please, from colleagues? No, strong financial performance, as we've kind of come accustomed to. Lucy, do you have a question?
Yes, thanks, Mike. So overall, the HRA capital programme is projected to be underspent by £6 million for the year, and Table 8 sets out the major variations against the revised capital budget. And that one of those is HRA upgrades, quite a significant one, including solar, thermal and PV. A new strategy will be to deliver work in 2024-25, and the budget is requested to be carried forward of £746,000, so it's £1 million nearly. Can I ask what caused that significant delay?
So in part, it's so in part it's to do with the fact that we are looking through the stock condition survey to make sure we're investing resources in the right place, and in part it's because the accelerated expenditure on dealing with compliance issues through the revenue account has actually meant some of the work we go through other funding streams. So things like voids, where we are doing upgrades of electrical systems, is part of that process.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you. And with that clarification, so we're being asked to note the report. So all those in favour? Thank you very much. Unanimous. And then finally, my favourite part of the agenda, Treasury Management Quarter 3 Review Report. Over to you, Paul.
Oh, it's my favourite part of the agenda too. Okay. This report provides details of the third quarter review of Treasury activities for the financial year ending on the 31st of March of this year, and highlights the Council Treasury Management strategy and policies which have previously been approved of by this Council. The report was considered by the Treasury Management Committee on the 9th of January, who voted it and endorsed the report for consideration at Cabinet and at Council. The Council has adopted the sixth code of practice for Treasury Management in the public sector and the Prudential Code for company finances in local authorities. It operates its Treasury Management activities in compliance with those codes. The codes place responsibility on members to review and scrutinise Treasury Management policy and activities against potential indicators. This report sets out a range of indicators and highlights there are no breaches to alert you to. Since the start of 2023, the Bank of England has raised the base interest rates from 4 to 5.25%, with the largest increase being of 0.5% made on the 22nd of June. The base rate of 5.25% has been held steady since early August and confirms the Bank of England's narrative that to the financial markets that UK interest rates will remain higher for longer. Whilst headline inflation rate has fallen, is still double the 2% Bank of England target rate. Council remains significantly internally borrowed, and cash balances available for investment will continue to enable the Council to maximise its returns in the current high interest rate environment. As set out in Treasury Management, Treasury priorities for the investment of the Council's day-to-day cash balances are to safeguard security, ensure that liquidity is maintained, and then to achieve yield. The Council's Treasury Management activities continues to be monitored against the wider economic backdrop in accordance with linked asset services and the Council's Treasury Management strategy. I am pleased that this report illustrates the positive management of our cash balances and that endorses the recommendations to propose it for approval by the Council. I just want to say, what a pleasure, I'd like to get these 7 to 10 bus home.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick, for that. And I remember we had an in-depth discussion about this at the committee, which was an extremely long discussion, I seem to remember, but therefore very comprehensive and in-depth. Are there any questions or comments from colleagues? No. Lucy, do you have a question?
Thank you, yes. I'll give a question to officers. I think the council is one of 12 councils in the region taking part in the Responsible Procurement Diagnostic run by the East of England Local Government Association, which I'm sure Councillor Kendrick knows about. And the survey is out at the moment, and the outcome is going to be channelled into the council's new procurement strategy that's coming forward in the summer. I just wondered, is this going to feed into Treasury Management too, or if not, are we working with other councils in similar ways on developing our Treasury Management strategy?
That's got one of the officers.
So I think the answer is that the Treasury Management strategies are largely informed by both statute and the guidance from our Treasury Management advisors. And there's two main Treasury Management advisors that operate in the market, Link Services and Noel & Close. We are with Link Services. They provide us with detailed guidance on Treasury Management strategy. So over and above that, nothing additional. And of course, every Treasury Management strategy will depend on each council's overall Treasury Management position. So, as a position would be quite different to other authorities. But, there is an informal sharing of these types of documents, so we don't reinvent the wheel. So yes, we are participating with others.
Thank you, Nev. With that, we've been asked to note the report. Can I see all those in favour, please? That's unanimous. Thank you. Before we finish, just an announcement, which is that the March Cabinet will start an hour earlier due to the amount of business, so it'll be 4:30 p.m. on the 6th of March. It's a very busy agenda, so please note that. Yeah. Oh well, Alex says please have your Weetabix before. That's fine. Other brands are available. And with that, thank you very. Yes, we are still live. With that, thank you very much, everybody. That's the end of the meeting.